Dr. Holly's Please Read to Me break. I'm just sitting here chilling with my fan, my collard green fan, my eco fan. I'm about to cook this in about 20 minutes when I'm done here. I'll cook some collard greens. This is collard greens from my garden. I just have to say that yesterday was really hard with all the uprisings and all of that, people yelling and critiquing and just the uncertainty and just everything. It was just like, I kind of had my fill of just trauma. So it was a hard day. But today we had a town hall from Obama, and actually I just felt good all day. So we're late on this Please Read to Me break because I was watching the town hall with President Obama. I think one thing that really started me off on the right foot today was that I walked around my garden and saw some big giant collard green leaves. This is a baby leaf. My leaves were huge, 10 inches long. And so I picked a bunch and I was walking around fanning like I was the queen of the garden. And so just kind of started my day on the right foot. So what I'm going to read to you, with you today is Grandpa Cacao. This book is going to take a minute, so you might want to grab a tea, grab a juice, grab some wine, and just sit back and enjoy the book. Grandpa Cacao. I want to do a little housekeeping first. I told y'all about this book, Women Who Dig, Farming Feminism and the Fight to Feed the World. It was a book club book that I read. And this book really just I come from farming people, but this book really just was so awesome to me. And so I'm happy to read a children's version of kind of a farming book. So get ready to read. I also want to say thank y'all for ordering my first children's book, Muddy Ballerinas. I'll show y'all the inside on Friday. It's over there somewhere. I have 128 pre-orders in 4 days. It's really a book about racial reconciliation and just friendships across cultural, racial lines. And it's based on a true story of Danielle and some of her friends. And there's some pictures of the kids who are that are older now. So they were 20 now, and they were 5 when they were in the book. So feel free to pre-order your copy of Muddy Ballerinas. So ask me how if you want to do that. So Grandpa Cacao, if you are walking by the classroom, just give a shout. This is reading with commentary, so I kind of stop halfway through and just chit-chat. So just let me know you're here, and that'll be great. Grandpa Cacao, Tale of Chocolate from Farm to Family by Elizabeth Zunon. It's a little hot, so I might need to fan myself. Grandpa Cacao, Tale of Chocolate from Farm to Family. Written and illustrated by Elizabeth Zunon. Chocolate is my most favorite thing ever. For my birthday, Daddy and I are making our family's special celebration cake while Mommy goes to pick up another treat. I'm sorry, the shadows are kind of wacky. Every one of us loves this cake, even my little brother Denny, who is the pickiest of picky eaters. Chocolate is a gift to you from Grandpa Cacao, Daddy says. We can only enjoy chocolate treats thanks to farmers like him. I've never met Grandpa Cacao, but I've heard his voice on the phone. I can almost picture him as a mystery from Africa, a place I've never been. Tell me again about Grandpa Cacao, I asked. Are you like him? Am I? We're from a land called the Ivory Coast, Daddy says, where I grew up watching big, graceful elephants roam, it's where the air breathes hot and damp, thick with stories and music and the languages of people from tiny villages and big cities. Grandpa Cacao's farm was the pride of his life. I've been to the Ivory Coast and it is beautiful. Have not seen a cacao there. I saw a cacao in Costa Rica when I was there recently, but the Ivory Coast is an amazing, beautiful place. This is an interesting book. I'll tell you about the illustrations later. The author and the illustrator uses different kinds of artistic details to share what the daughter is thinking and then what the father is talking about. So see if you can catch on to how she's using art in her detail. Thank you, Jackie. I love it. My friend Jackie from New York. This is Grandpa Cacao. The air, the rain, and the soil must be just right for growing cacao, Daddy. Daddy holds a sieve. Daddy holds a sieve over the mixing bowl, and I pour in the flour. Grandpa Cacao carried heavy loads through the bush, back and forth to his fields on his wide, calloused feet. That must be where I get my wide boat feet, I say as I ask me. Danielle's trying to call me during... She thinks it's over because I usually read at 6. But I'm reading late because President Obama was on. Your Grandpa Cacao spotted the ripe fruits ready to be picked from the forest canopy and cut them right off the tree trunks quickly and precisely. Just like the way I can spot the end of summer from tinges of orange at the tips of treetops. It's hard to read this close in. This is not a good spot for reading. So, see, this image looks a little different with the silhouette than some of the other pictures in the book. So see if you can tell how she's using art to tell the story. Different art forms to tell the story. He sliced through the skins of the pods without cutting into any of the sticky white beans inside. I carefully sprinkled in the salt. Grandpa Cacao could hold 2 or even 3 whole fruits in one of his rough hands, like a giant. Did you ever help? I asked. Did you know that cacao seeds were white? I wonder how we get the dark chocolate, the brown. Oh no, let's see. Everybody in the village worked together, says Daddy, as he melts the chocolate and butter. When I turned 7, Grandma let me help gather and scoop out the cacao pods, but only if my schoolwork and chores were done. So the dad is reliving memories right now. Hi, Alana. Alana is the reason why I'm doing this read aloud. I read a book to her for her son, and I just kept reading. Alana was one of my former students. Grandpa Cacao and the other villagers scooped out millions of cacao beans and put them in big pits in the ground lined with banana leaves. They stirred the cacao beans every few days until they changed from white to light brown. Then Grandpa Cacao and the other strong men hoisted the beans out of the pits and onto the cement floor under the sun to dry. Warm whiffs of chocolate wafted through the air. So Jackie is saying that she did that. They're roasted, and her family in the Dominican Republic had a cacao farm. That is so cool. I'm going to ask you to send me some pictures so that we can share them with the people. My friend Lourdes is watching from New York. Well, she might be in Dominican Republic right now. We're not quite sure where Lourdes is because she travels. This is awesome. I did not know that this is how you dry the cacao beans. Pretty cool. Learn something new every day. We lugged the beans inside every single night so they wouldn't rot in the morning dew, says Daddy. If a tropical storm clouds rolled in, we all rushed to cover up the drying beans so the mighty rains wouldn't drench them. I bet he could smell the rain a mile away, the way I can smell a cold day. You may not be able to tell, but this is in italic, so she's also using different fonts to create different messages. When the skins of the dry beans made a crack, crack, cracking sound between your fingers, they were ready to sell, says Daddy. Do they taste like chocolate? I asked. My stomach is grumbling. I wonder what Mommy is bringing home. They tasted bitter, but always left a sweetness on the tongue. He adds the sugar to our cake batter. Crack, crack, crack. I break 1, 2, 3 eggs into the bowl, but don't let any of the shells fall in. Daddy mixes as I pour in the milk. Once I got older, says Daddy, I helped your Grandpa Cacao bag up the beans to sell to the cacao buyers. If the roads weren't flooded from the rains, they came to our village in trucks with their big scales and bundles of money to buy our beans. Then they sent them off for chocolate making. Look at his, I love their smocks. They're aprons. I'm reading Grandpa Cacao by Elizabeth Zunon. Once we sold our cacao beans, we dashed off to the Friday market. It buzzed with every farmer in town eager to spend his hard-earned money. Daddy smiles as he remembers. We use our money to buy food, school supplies, uniforms, books, and fabrics to have our special occasion clothes made. Your Grandpa Cacao and I always visited Grandma's fruit stall at the market with a surprise. People. The illustrations are beautiful. But look how the contrast in her story and his story. I take over the mixing while Daddy greases the cake pan. I'm wondering if it's a new party dress that Mama's gone to get me. What do you think Mama has gone to get the girl? I don't know. Oh, kind of interesting. Let's gotta find out. I know you're a lot like your Grandpa Cacao. This makes us both smile. The batter smells more and more chocolatey. I'm getting so hungry. I wonder if Mommy's gone to pick up that puppy I've been wishing for. Maybe the Mommy's gonna get a puppy. What do you think the mom's gonna get? Grandpa Cacao didn't eat anything chocolate himself, says Daddy, because it was a fancy and expensive treat. But the kids couldn't resist sneaking a taste of the pulp from the cacao fruits or the candy sweet drink we made from it. Daddy dips a finger into the bowl and has a taste. Candy sweet. He hands me the wooden spoon and I start to mix again, but my arms get tired fast. I help by licking the spoon. If you're here, just pop into the classroom and say hi. Almost done, says Daddy, as he pours a thick, gooey batter into the greased cake pan like a chocolate waterfall. That's a great image. I scrape the last of it in and I think about Grandpa Cacao and all that he did to help make this cake. Look at her face. That's how I feel when it's like cake is happening. I'm like, woo. Ooh, who do you think that is? As I help wipe the counters, the doorbell rings and the oven timer goes off. My cake is baked. Mommy's home. Get the forks, I yell. I run to the front door. Mommy walks in with a hunched over man that I've never seen. I look at the picture on the wall. Happy birthday! Probably can't even see the picture. I'll bring it in closer. Happy birthday, he says to me with an accent that sounds like Daddy's. In that voice I've heard on the phone, he's an old man, same color as me. He's got my same small ears and Daddy's smile, and he looks at me like he's known me forever. Tanisha, hello. Hello. I'm reading Grandpa Cacao about a family in who's from the Ivory Coast. He pulls me into a strong hug and then offers me a big oval fruit that's yellowish orange. I can feel how rough his hands are as I take it from him. I need both my hands to hold the fruit. It's your birthday present, he says. These illustrations are gorgeous. Oh, and there's a little brother in the picture too. These are really beautiful illustrations. He looks a little bit like Harry Belafonte too. I recognize his twinkling eyes and I know he is my Grandpa Cacao. He is, I'm gonna say it again, is my grandpa Cacao, the best birthday present ever in the whole world. So I'm reading Grandpa Cacao about a family who originated from the Ivory Coast, and it's a story about the grandfather making the cacao or the chocolate. So that is, I'm going to show you this picture again. It's a beautiful picture of the girl and her grandfather who came from the Ivory Coast. And I'm just going to read you a little bit about what the author has said in her book, her author's note. She basically says that she lived in the Ivory Coast but never saw a cacao. We know that Jackie, who's on this, I don't know who's watching, from the Dominican Republic, has people in her family who owns a cacao farm, and so she's very familiar, and so I'm glad about that. This author never met her own grandpa Cacao, but she hopes to one day return to the Ivory Coast and walk through a real cacao plantation and hold a pod in her hand. I was in the Ivory Coast, did not see a cacao pod, but I did see one in Costa Rica when I was there, so it's pretty amazing. Cacao is the word used for the tree and the fruit, and it's believed to come from a Mayan word, and the Mayans referred to cacao as God food, and I can get with that. Cocoa is a word used for the products made from the fruit of the cacao tree. There are some realities of the cacao trade, so there's a lot of child labor involved in that industry. While some children, she writes, help out on family farms, there's also a long history of exploitation, which goes back to the colonial era of forced labor. There's a current effort by the big candy companies to ensure that the cacao they buy does not come from farms where child or enslaved people are used. The government of the Ivory Coast is also trying to clamp down on such practices. What you can do as a consumer is to look for chocolate that is fair trade, meaning it was harvested without child or enslaved labor, and that the cacao farmer received a fair price for his or her beans. She talks a little bit about the art and how she decided to use different art forms to express the twin stories that were happening. There's a story that the father is telling about his memories of the Ivory Coast, and there's a girl telling a story of baking the chocolate cake. So she used the two types of art for that. And then she talks about the history, the Mayan history of cacao, where the cocoa comes from. She goes through from beans to the actual chocolate, and then there's a recipe in the back. So I just found that this book was really warmed my soul, especially, if y'all saw me come in, I have my own little garden in the back, not growing cacao, of course, but growing lots of stuff. And just to have your hands in the soil, it's really empowering. Whether you live in an apartment, you have a little herb garden on your windowsill, or have access to some land for a big farm, just being in touch with the soil, really brings back memories of our forefathers, our ancestors. So I wanted to read this book, Grandpa Cacao, to just share that. So thank y'all for listening. I really appreciate it. Thanks for coming to the classroom. I will be back on Friday with a fun book about a worm. We're gonna keep with this soil theme. So come back at Friday at 6. And I'll read to you again. It really helps to maintain my sanity to actually read children's books. I'm a former teacher. I was a former teacher, and I loved reading books to my class. And it really brings me joy. So thank y'all for listening. I appreciate it. Much love to you. Get to gardening. You can have an ego fan, and you can eat your ego fan when you finish fanning with it. Okay? Peace and love. Thank y'all.